Good morning, evening, or afternoon. In today's video, I think we're going to have a little more of an art talk. So, this is going to be kind of similar to a podcast with a slideshow showing in the background. So, essentially, long story short, what happened today was that I intended to film more of an instructional video or, my usual type of painting video. But as you can tell, I struggled very much with the camera angle, so I kind of deemed the footage kind of not. I kind of deemed the footage unusable for my usual types of videos. So instead, I think that today what I'm going to do is do a little bit of an art talk. So I'm going to talk about the balance between working from nature and working from photography. So, what I mean in terms of balance is really, in a sense, knowing what to look for when you're painting or drawing or sculpting from nature, from life, versus working from photography. So, when you're working from a photo reference, the tendency, now not for everyone, but for most of us, certainly for me, the tendency is going to be in taking a literal description from the photo reference and translating it onto your canvas and thinking that that is the end all, the ultimate result. And that is actually similar to working from life. So, working from life, there is also this kind of tendency in trying to replicate exactly what you're confronted with in nature. Now, when working from life, one learns to interpret information and to uh, record only what is necessary, because in nature, when you're working from life, there's a tremendous amount of information that you're taking in when you're working from life as opposed to working from photo reference. So when you're working from life, you really learn how to selectively see certain things that you want to place into your canvas, your drawing paper, your sculpture, or whatever type of media you are working with. Photography simplifies that quite a bit. That is, a photograph is pretty much a discrete. Uh, it's a discrete sense of nature. So what I mean is that it is giving you pixels bit by bit, meaning that you can zoom right into a photograph and see every single pixel, depending on the software and the camera and all of that. Nature's continuous, which means that in nature, you can't really zoom into each individual pixel. You can't really zoom in. The further you go, you'll reach the cells of the face, you'll reach the atoms, the quarks, the gluons, or whatever kind of stuff you'll see if you zoom into nature. Nature is unlimited. There is quite a bit more information there for you to observe when you're working from life. Now, there are pros and cons to working from life and working from photo reference. Classically, uh, most basically most schools of thought are going to favor working from life over working from photo reference almost all the time, because that is how artists were trained originally, and that's how artists mostly work today. And in terms of classical art schools and all of that, working from life is really what catapults you in your learning and your development. But now, take into account the fact that you're trying to create a, a large painting with multiple elements, working from both a model and photo reference. Now, for me personally, if I were to try to make a large painting of the model only from life, that is, only relying on the amount of time that I have with the live model, I will most certainly run out of time. Now, this all really depends on what you're after in your paintings and whether you're of the mindset of a purist painter, a painter that is solely dedicated towards working in one particular school of thought. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you subscribe to only one particular school of thought, that is, I will only work from photo reference, or I will only work from nature, that is all right. That is completely up to you. That is your own preference. Now, I want to learn as much as I can from nature. And now let's relate this to the footage that you have playing on your screen. So again, I did the best that I could to film the painting and make this video about the development of this painting, but the footage just was a complete failure. So that's why I'm turning this more about an art talk. But in any case, this portrait study, for those of you that are following my daily YouTube videos, this portrait study is intended to steer me in the right direction for the larger painting that I'm going to create. Now, this is a portrait study in which I'm trying to analyze the colors. I'm trying to see how close I can get this painting to represent the magnificence of what it is like to observe something in nature. One of the worst things that you can tell me is that my painting looks just like a photograph. There's nothing wrong with photography. There's nothing wrong with photorealistic paintings. So please don't misinterpret me. But when I say that, one of the worst things you can tell me is that my painting looks just like a photograph. I'm sure other artists can relate. Is that we're trying to do something else with our paintings. Now, this is down to a very kind of philosophical way of thinking about art. Thinking about using your knowledge of shape, value, color, anatomy, structure, perspective, proportion, all of these things that go into making something on a two-dimensional surface look and represent something in a three-dimensional sense, taking all of that information and orchestrating it in such a way that you represent what you are observing. It's really down to a philosophical way of thinking about nature. Now, the human observes what the human observes nature in a different way than a camera. Now, I'm not speaking to you in terms of a kind of scientific or a medical or anything. I'm not trying to tell you literally how we observe nature, but I'm trying to tell you how we kind of interpret it. So essentially, it's about the portrayal of how a certain scene or a certain thing appears to your eyes. Now, certain things will remain constant, such as proportion, such as perspective. Now, if I am drawing a cube in 2-point or 3-point perspective, there is a way to draw that cube exactly right in terms of my relative position with respect to the cube. But there is much more you can do with the cube. If the cube has texture to it, if the cube has color, if the cube has writing on it, all these things you now can pick and choose what you want to display of that cube. You can push certain colors, uh, more chromatic, more saturated. You can push them closer to being more monochromatic. And really, when it all comes down to putting paint to canvas, the artist's own personality will show. The artist's own touch will show. Now it doesn't matter how similar one artist's training is to another artist. You can give 100 different people the same academic painting training, and I guarantee you that you will be able to differentiate who painted what, if you know, of course, the artist well enough. Or in a simpler sense, if you take 100 artists that were trained in the same way, each one of those artists, now assuming they remain faithful to their training, each one of those artists will portray what they are looking at in very different ways. Now, each one of those artists, so suppose we have each one of those 100 artists, each one of those artists can get perspective right. They can say they drew a cube, they all drew a cube. They can get the perspective completely exact, each one of those 100 artists. But what will change is what elements of that cube, now whether the cube has texture to it, writing, or whatever, like I mentioned before, they will selectively see what information they want to place down on their canvas. Now, this is something that is very strongly developed when you're working from nature. When you're working from nature, you will inevitably, like I said before, you will inevitably learn how to selectively see. And that type of seeing is learned. In painting, you're really kind of learning how to see in that way. So, in a sense, you can go beyond merely taking an image, recording it perfectly, pixel by pixel. You can go beyond that type of um, thinking. It's very limiting to think that you're just going to look at a picture and then copy down what that picture looks like verbatim. It's very limiting to think in that kind of way. Now, what I recommend to the training artist is to work as much as you possibly can from nature, and then you will find that there just is not enough time in the day to get what you want to get out of nature, and then that's when you resort to using photo reference. Now, again, that's all down to a matter of taste. I'm telling you how I personally feel about the subject. Pretty much, I'd say like 99.9% of my YouTube portrait painting videos, I use photo reference. And again, I use photo reference to avoid what happened to me exactly today. So today, I tried to film the painting process so that I could make a more of an instructional type of this is me working and painting, these are my thoughts kind of thing. And I just couldn't do that because, again, I struggled with the camera placement. But in any case, getting off topic, sorry. When you're trained to work from life, the transition from working from life to working from photographs is a very a pretty clean transition, because in the photograph you know not to copy it, you know to interpret it, and basically you know what you're looking for. But if you're a beginner and you're just starting out with photographs, photo references, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But if you want to progress even further with your work, I would recommend working from life as much as possible. Now, again, back to the topic of balance, the balance between working from nature, working from photo reference. There's another area from another perspective you can work from, and that is the master copies. The if you're a copyist, so if you're someone that knows how to observe an old master painting or a picture of an old master painting, and you know how to recreate it in the studio and make it resemble the work of the old masters, whether it be Rembrandt, Caravaggio, or whichever of the paintings that or the artist that you're creating master copies from, you are in a very excellent place. You are in an astounding, wonderful place if you have been copying master paintings. So if you're in the copyist school of thought where you're observing paintings and you're recreating them, you are in an excellent place to start working from life, because you now have the tools and you now have the methods of creating paintings in the style and in the methodologies of a person that has been spending a lot of time looking at genuine masterpieces. And I really do mean that. If you've spent a lot of time uh, as a copyist, copying master copies of paintings, you are in an excellent place to start working from life and creating your own original works. All it is learning how to transition from observing a two-dimensional thing, which is the painting or the photograph of the painting, and transitioning from that to looking at a a real person or a real scene in front of you. All it is just a transition from the two-dimensional thing to the three-dimensional thing, and just letting your eye take in all of the information that you already know to look for, and interpreting it and placing it down on canvas. And so I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the balance between working from nature and working from photography. So, as you know, those of you that are still listening, I am uploading YouTube videos every single day. I really want to show you and present to you the experience of working in the studio. And that is traditional painting. I don't even know if I should use the word traditional, but classical realism, classical realist painting takes work, it takes thinking, it takes struggle. There's a lot of stuff involved in this kind of painting. And now I'm not saying that there isn't work, there isn't struggle and all of that in any other type of painting, but again, and this is really really getting far off topic, so I'm sorry about that. But since this is an art talk, I guess I can talk to you directly about my own thoughts about my daily YouTube videos. So I'm really trying to bring the experience of being in the studio. I think about the great people in the past, like Steve Irwin, bringing nature to your TV screen, the 10 most amazing snakes, or uh, going and getting really close to Komodo dragons and bringing the wildlife to your TV screen. I really take a lot of inspiration in that. And what I'm trying to do is combine the art of video making and the art of painting together so that I can bring that experience to you. And I want to bring that experience to you every single day. That is my hope, that is my ambition, to combine the art of making videos and the art of making painting together in such a way that people may benefit from that. So I really hope that this video helps you out. I wish you the best in all of your artwork, and I sincerely apologize for not being able to adequately film my painting session today. So I really hope that you enjoy this art talk. I personally enjoyed having the time to talk to you about certain things that are going on in my mind in terms of the nature of working from life, uh, and balancing working from life and balancing that with working from photo reference. So again, I really hope that this video helps you out. I wish you the best in all of your artwork, and I'll see you again in another 24 hours.